Good evening, everyone. If you're just joining us, we're allowing other people to come into the meeting and we will be starting shortly. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. We're going to allow about 30 more seconds and we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks. Good evening, everyone. We're going to go ahead and start right now. My name is Erica Pines. I am in External Affairs for MARTA, and we want to welcome you to our Summerhill Connect the Core update. Before we get into the agenda, I just want to remark that these are some strange times, but these are also some very exciting times because we're all still working and MARTA is working hard to advance this project for you and for the city of Atlanta and the region. And the city of Atlanta has been working hard. A lot of people have been working hard today to get this project off the road. And we have some exciting updates tonight. So that everyone can follow along with the flow, I'll run through the agenda of the meeting. First, we'll hear the purpose. Then we'll hear from our councilwoman, Ms. Carla Smith. Then we will share a project background and overview just to get those of you who may be new to this project up to speed. We'll provide you with some status updates. We will talk about our 30% drafted plans. We will discuss upcoming milestones, next steps, and in the end, we will have a Q&A. If you have questions, please put those questions in the Q&A section and I'll go through that shortly. So let's go through some tips for today's meetings. Your microphones have been muted to avoid any background noise. If you have project-specific questions, please place those in the Q&A section. So if you're on the Zoom, you will see a Q&A and a chat. We will not be monitoring the chat. We will be monitoring the Q&A so that we can compile those questions. If you're watching us from YouTube, we will also be monitoring YouTube and we will pull questions from those as you comment throughout the evening. If you have a question that's not related to this project, we would like you to send those questions to custserve@itsmarta.com. That's CUSTSERV@itsmarta.com. It's pretty important that you send non-project related questions to our customer service email because we like to log those emails and make sure that we get back with you. So email any questions not related to this project to custserve@itsmarta.com. We will address as many questions and comments as time will allow this evening. Responses to all questions will be provided at the website for this program, and that site is connectthecore.com. That's CONNECTTHECORE.com. Connectthecore.com. If you miss any details during the presentation, it will be posted. This presentation will be posted to the project website. And if you have any project specific questions that we don't get to tonight, please email those to Brian Hobbs. His email is jhobbs@itsmarta.com. That's jhobbs@itsmarta.com. Thank you. And I'll probably give these instructions again at the end. So if you miss them, I'll circle back on those. Thank you. So the purpose of the meeting tonight, we're going to provide you with a project update. We are making progress. The last time we met was July and August of this year. We're having continuous stakeholder communications. We have received some federal and state approvals. We're going to share the draft 30% design with you, and we're going to talk about how procurement for the final design is underway. So we are making progress, and we're just excited to be here. And we want to continue these milestone meetings with the public because, like I said, these are some strange times, but they are also some exciting times. So tonight you will hear from myself, Erica Pines. You will hear from Heather Aladeff, Brian Hart, Shelley Peart, Brian Hobbs, sorry about that, Shelley Peart, our councilwoman, Carla Smith, Jason Morgan, Emily Ritzler, and Katrina Highsmith. And now I will turn it over to Council Member Carla Smith. Thanks.
Oh, thanks, Erica. I'm Carla Smith, City Council person for where the BRT is going to be. And before I get started with my slides, this slide actually is a picture of a bunch of neighborhood folks that we took a couple of years ago. And if you look closely, you'll probably see somebody you might know. Anyway, I do want to take a second though, just to thank you. If y'all, the MARTA team has been working really hard. So first I want to thank the MARTA team, but even if this is your first time to ever attend, or even if you don't know what BRT means, I appreciate you coming because that means that you care, and that means so much to me. So this is a really important project for District 1, and I really can't thank all of you enough. I'm looking down here. We've got 72 participants. I know there's a bunch of people watching on YouTube, and this just means so much that all of you care about this, and we're going to get this to completion. So did y'all hear me?
You muted. Okay. Yep, you muted. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Did you hear me before?
Yes.
Okay. All right, good. Because I looked down and I was muted. So my first slide is slide 7, correct? Ah, there it is. Okay. So some of y'all will remember this slide from last time. We might have listened to you and added some neighborhoods to it. So the first question should be popping up on your screen, and it's, where do you live? So put your neighborhood in there. I'm going to go ahead and fill this out for me too. I didn't do it last time. Oh, the panelists can't vote. All right. And then question number 2 is, where do you work or study? Number 3 is, how did you hear about this meeting? And number 4 is this your first Summerhill BRT meeting? And it's Bus Rapid Transit. All 3 of those words are important. Okay, Katrina is telling us she's going to give the poll 1 minute and she's going to release the results. Oh, this is fun. Okay, now we'll go to the next slide. And this slide is slide 8. Oh, look, there it is. There's the results. Oh my goodness. Y'all are instantaneous here. Looks like we're about even on the where do you live and where do you work or study. Wow, downtown is showing out tonight, 39%. And looks like other. Wow, we've got some people that are other. Okay, how did you hear about the meeting? Email has won with 50%. And then, is this your first meeting? Well, my goodness, 41% of you, this is your first meeting. I'm so impressed. Thank you for coming. And then if you're a returning member, I really appreciate that you came back, because that means you really do care about this. And I think you first timers are going to continue to come back until we get this completed. Then I'll see you on the bus. Okay, so now we are to slide number 8, correct? Oh, good. Okay, this is relevant past plans, or my word for it would be, we're going to talk about a little history here. So in 2008, there was a transit planning board, and also the Connect Atlanta plan. So I don't know how many of y'all remember the Connect Atlanta plan. Heather, I know you remember it. Heather was one of the people that went around with the city to discuss the Connect Atlanta plan. So it was my really first comprehensive transit study I had ever really worked closely with. The city went to all neighborhoods and discussed this Connect Atlanta plan. Then these last parts are the ones that are most important to me. In 2013, the Braves announced that they were leaving. So the 77 acres of just parking lot, we didn't know what was going to happen to it, but we knew that we needed to do a neighborhood redevelopment plan. So we got the, excuse me, we got the largest LCI ever given out to anyone in the metro area for us. And it is called the Livable Centers Initiative Stadium Neighborhood. If you want to go look at it, we've still got it up. It's at Stadium Neighborhoods with an S, LCI.org. So that is still up. And that was where we had numerous public meetings so we could decide what we wanted, what kind of development we wanted on these 77 acres and how we were going to transition out into the Summerhill neighborhood. Then in 2018, Atlanta's transportation plan came into place and sort of married all this together. And that is when the Summerhill BRT then got on the More MARTA list, and we are where we are now. So now I think we can go to the next slide. So I'm going to talk about our public meetings. So first I'm going to talk about the little box. That is the October outreach. That was when we were very first getting going. Like, where do we want this to go? Do we want to change anything? Because this started out as a Tiger grant, and it had a line going from the stadium up to the Midtown somewhere. And we had these meetings in October. So on October, we coordinated with the City of Atlanta Mayor's Office Planning, myself, Atlanta Housing, a whole bunch of people came together, and we did public meetings throughout the month of October. The one that I was at, that was this picture here, we had them at the Georgia Hill facility, and it was October 10th and 12th. We had 2 public meetings at the Georgia Hill facility. Then we also went to the neighborhood and the NPU meetings in October. There were 6 stakeholder meetings, 3 advocacy groups, 1 stakeholder bus tour, and then they did that survey, and everyone was really good about filling out that survey. I'm sure some of y'all remember. We had over 450 people filled out the survey. We had 125 people came to our public meetings. And then in this past July and August, we had virtual meetings. So we did public comment meetings in July and August. We had 2 virtual meetings, and you can read the summary of the comments there, which was positive support for this project, providing connection between South Atlanta, the Beltline, and going up to support the support of the dedicated lanes, and then the desire for enhanced station features and amenities. And then this is going to move on, and you're going to see where we are with these comments, where they've taken us. So I'm so excited. Thank you.
Thank you. So at this time, we're going to get into some of the project specifics and talk about where we are in terms of design and operations. And I just want to say thank you again to everyone for joining us tonight and spending time with this project. We are getting it moved along very quickly and have been working hard over the past month since we were last out, or past couple of months. I don't know, time is changing quickly on us these days. So just for some of you who have joined us before and those that are new, we'll walk through the project route for just a moment. And I'm going to try to use a laser pointer here to show where we are. So our project route begins on the south end, just north of University Avenue near the Atlanta Beltline. And that's actually an extension from when we originally started. The project originally was terminating around Georgia Avenue. And based on public feedback and that information, it was decided to extend the route further down the corridor.
Hey, Emily.
Yes, ma'am.
Before you start, we're getting some messages in the chat that people that are looking from their phones that our pictures are large, but the presentation is small.
Okay. I'm not sure how to modify that. Katrina, do you know if there's a way to make sure that the main image is?
And for those of you out there, they're saying the presentation slides are minimized. Yeah, and we will post them on the website. Somebody just asked that, but I don't know if it's us or if it's the Zoom, your Zoom app. But if it's us, we're going to check into that right now. So if you give us a second, we're going to check into that. Thanks for those comments.
Okay.
Because what we're seeing as panelists, for those of you that are watching, is showing pretty big on our phone. And if you are looking at it from Zoom, someone else okay. If you are looking at it from Zoom, you can go to itsmarta.com and look at it on YouTube if you want to see the bigger presentation. That's itsmarta.com. There's a link at the top of the page where you can view it live on the YouTube channel. So if you touch the presentation, I just got a comment to touch the presentation in your Zoom and it should enlarge. So it looks like it's not it's not on us, I think. But if you do want to see it large, go to itsmarta.com and click on the link at the top of the page. Okay, sorry about that, Emily. I just wanted to make sure we were good.
Not a problem. We certainly want to make sure everybody can see everything we have going on tonight. So thank you for that. So we start on the south end near the Atlanta Beltline, where we have a terminating point. We'll show some more specific details on that in a moment. One of the changes from the last meeting, we do come north and we loop through downtown on MLK and Mitchell. Originally, we had an intent of coming through Capitol Square by the Georgia State Capitol to head back south. With some changes in downtown and that road being closed as a possibly more permanent feature, we've taken an alternative route down Washington Avenue and Memorial. And we are going to walk through each of these sections in detail tonight, but just wanted to share that change. The majority of the project is in dedicated lanes. And we have 12 station areas throughout the corridor. And one of the great things about this project are the connections to the rail stations as well. We have a connection to both the east-west and the north-south rail lines. And we're going to talk about the operations and how to more efficiently move the buses so that it works with the traffic signal system in order to be a very efficient, reliable, and frequent service. And one of the major upgrades that will happen is a resurfacing of the roadway that will for the entire roadway, not just for the bus lanes that are coming through. And then I mentioned the rerouting there before. So we'll go on to the next piece that is talking about bus operations. In working the project forward and what we want to accomplish and the goals of this project really were about the frequency and the reliability of service and making sure that we can accommodate all the new developments coming in as well. And we know how attractive that this route's going to be connecting the Beltline into downtown. We are looking at around 10 to 12 minutes headways. Headways is the time between buses. So there would be a bus coming every 10 minutes. The timing and the scheduling was to be comparable to the rail service that's currently being offered. And then one of the other main features of this project is this bus will be moving. The time that we spend at each station will be short. Move through as quickly as possible. The buses won't be stopping or staging within the lanes. They will be moving. If there is a need for staging, that will occur on the south end of the project. And MARTA is also looking at converting the fleet over to electric vehicles. So that's really exciting to have electric BRT vehicles coming into the corridor. There's some great advantages with that, not only for fuel efficiency, but also they tend to be quieter buses as well. And that change is something that's going to be great for the corridor. And then we have more than 85% of the corridor will be within dedicated lanes. That's a really key feature for us to maintain that frequency and to have that reliability. And by reliability, we're talking about when you get on the bus, you know that your trip time will regularly be consistent, that you know if it's going to take you 10 minutes between your stops, that it will always take you 10 minutes between those stops. And the anticipated time to ride from the Beltline, the south end, to roughly the Ted Turner area on the north is about an 11 to 12-minute ride. So we're really excited to have those dedicated lanes to be able to offer that type of service. So one of the features that we wanted to just share with you is the transit signal priority and what that means. Transit signal priority is a technology system used within the buses and also in the traffic signals themselves. And we're looking at how we use technology to improve the overall service of the BRT. And there are different treatment types of how transit signal priority works, and we're still working through what each of those options would be at specific intersections. But where it's most effective is in intersections where you know you will have a long queue. So like if the light is red and there's a lot of traffic, we want to be able to prioritize the bus through that. So either by making the green light a little bit longer for the buses, or there's something called a queue jump where the bus is able to scoot ahead of the other traffic with a signal for them. And there's some areas where there might be a need within how the intersection works, you know, where each of the signals changes, that we would have a time where there would just be buses moving. So everyone else would be stopped to allow a bus to make a turn through an intersection. And the details of which intersections and where each of those priorities will occur is something we're working through right now. And we really are looking at how we also optimize the signals, how they're being managed already in the city of Atlanta. So there are, within downtown especially, how the buses will work within the program system that occurs today. So one of the main features, and if you've been on the calls with us before, you know that we've talked a lot about the dedicated lanes and the importance of the dedicated lanes for this to be a standout high quality service. And so we do have the majority of the corridor with dedicated lanes. And what that means is that that lane is used for the purposes of the transit operations. And so if you look at the map here, we show the areas where it's dedicated. So all of those solid blue lines that you see on the map are the areas where we have dedicated lanes. We do have a couple of areas where we have shared lanes, and by shared that means with other traffic, regular traffic, that we would be sharing that, and that's to accommodate some different types of turning movements throughout the corridor if we need to accommodate for some specific left or right turns, and also some areas where we wanted to make sure we accommodate for parking as in some of the neighborhoods. So in this area, and as we get into the 30%, you'll see the details of that. And then also in downtown, where we have some of these areas where we might have to change lanes or move between it, those are shared lanes. All right. So next we wanted to talk a little bit about stations. I think we had shared previously on the station areas, and where we are in the design process is we are not determining exactly at this point what the aesthetics of that will be, what the station's going to actually look like. That's going to come in the final design piece. But this gives you an overview of what the station area would look and feel like and what type of features would be there. So all of the stations would have a shelter with an overhang canopy. There would be some sort of seating. There will be signs indicating, so you can see a pole here, the sign indicating that it's a stop. It's hard to see up under here, but there's a little real-time information there that would tell you how many minutes it is until the next bus arrives. Every station would also have emergency phones. You can see there will be vending machines so that you can easily get your fare, so that we can do the off-board fare collection. And then the stations would be equipped with security features such as closed circuit television. That's what the CCTV is. So if you look at the station layout here, this is looking at it as if you're in the sky, so just top down. And so you have about, from front to back, typically we're looking at 10 feet of space. There may be some areas where it's a little bit tighter, but we'd have bike racks. There would be a clear zone to pass through with the sidewalk. There's a loading zone to accommodate for wheelchairs and for the buses. And then this detectable warning surface there. So that's usually a bumpy surface so that you would have that warning strip to not be into the lane or into the roadway. The stations themselves are about 65 feet long in total length. And in order to accommodate all these different features, there would also be trash cans and recycling cans and everything to help keep the stations in order. So now we're gonna walk through the 30% design details for you. And, you know, I'm hoping everybody can see this clearly. There's a lot of detail and a lot of information. And so just bear with us as we go through it. And if you have questions, again, if you use the Q&A section at the end of the presentation, we'll come back and make sure we answer all of those questions. As we walk through the presentation, I just wanted to show here, we have a little guide box that gets you to where you are. So although we're moving north-south through the corridor and then from west back east, you know, we're kind of going sideways. So to orient you a little bit, if you need to find where you are, you can just look to the left of the screen and that highlights the area that we're showing. So the project, as we said, begins in on the south end near the Atlanta Beltline. And if you're familiar with the area, you'll know where the railroad crossing is. There's quite, I think, 4 rail lines there. So we terminate just before that. And then, you know, just to walk through the legend here so you can be familiar with what we're talking about, the red solid lanes are our dedicated lanes where you have dashed that's going to be shared. The orange is the BRT stations. And then we have areas where we know that there's some future development coming in to the corridor. So we've highlighted that in yellow. And as we walk through the corridor as well, there are some of the roads that are fairly narrow, and we want to make sure that we have the right lane widths to make sure that the travel through the corridor is safe for the buses and for the general purpose traffic. So you'll see we need to accommodate a little bit more space along the corridor. So what we're looking at on the south end is also a potential access, pedestrian access to the Atlanta Beltline before the tunnel that goes under. We're working out the specific details there, and that needs to be organized with the property owners as we go through it. But when the bus comes into this end, they would loop through here, have a stop, and then have a signal just for the bus to be able to re-enter the roadway and get back into the dedicated lane. The other piece that you'll see in our drawings as we go through each, we call this a typical section, which shows you what the lane configuration would be. So we have 11-foot travel lane for the buses, 10 feet for the general purpose, another 10-foot lane for general purpose, and 11 feet for the buses. And then the arrows show you northbound and southbound in the directions there. All right, let me get to the next one. So as we move up the corridor and we cross over Milton Avenue, we come into another area just before Haygood Avenue where there's some more future development that's being planned. And then we have a station location at Haygood Avenue, and both of those stations are located on the south side of Haygood Avenue. And then going in the northbound direction, this is a signal where we would be looking to do something, one of those queue jump pieces that I talked about where the buses would be able to advance through. And the purpose for that, as we get into the next section here, this is one of the areas where the road is narrow, but we also are accommodating for parking for the residents in that area as well. So you can see we had our typical section from before with the 4 lanes, and that changes in this next block to where we have a parking lane, a BRT lane, a general purpose lane, and then a shared lane that would be BRT and traffic together. And one of the choices of which side this would be on is that there are some, I think Councilwoman Smith mentioned earlier how hilly the area is. So just if you have to climb uphill or climb downhill, that helped us make the decision on which side the shared lanes needed to be on. So that's one of the pieces that we looked at in that area. And as we move through the corridor heading northbound, again, you can sort of see where we are here on the left-hand side. We have this up until Atlanta Avenue is where we have this 3-lane piece with the parking in there. And again, in Atlanta Avenue, we'd be looking at some sort of signal priority in order to get back into the dedicated lane. Excuse me. And then as we head north, the corridor widens out a little bit as we cross over Atlanta Avenue and approach Ormond Avenue. And then our stations near Ormond are on the southbound side, just on this side, and then on the northbound side, we have it just here across the street from this apartment building. And then when you come into the dedicated lanes, we did want to point out that you would be able to make right turns and be able to access those roadways as you normally would. So we wouldn't be prohibiting any of the turning movements that you would expect if you were driving through the corridor. And then this next piece as you move through this area near Little Street, right now there's actually about 5 lanes there. And so we are bringing that together to give ourselves some space there for the BRT and the bus lanes, and it would be consistent with the rest of the corridor to have that typical section we showed before with the bus lane, 2 general purpose lanes, and then the bus lane again. And then as we continue north and we approach Georgia Avenue, this is our next station area. And we widen out just a little bit. You can see in here that we do maintain the left turn lanes at the signal for Georgia Avenue coming in both directions, both north and southbound. And then as you cross over Georgia Avenue, in the Atlanta Transportation Plan are planned bicycle facilities. So we have accommodated for that in this section as well. And where the center turn lane that exists there today has come out in order to accommodate the space for these features moving forward. And then the next stop location as you continue on Hank Aaron Drive is at Fulton Street. And again, we have the left turn lanes to accommodate there. We're looking at the 11-foot bus lanes, 10-foot travel lanes, and bike lanes through this area. Once we cross over Fulton, this is where you can see where we are here. We start to get into where we cross the interstate itself. And so, and how we interface with I-20 coming in and out of the corridor. And so these are other signals that we'll be looking at for how they're timed together and how they work with the interstate access and how the buses are able to move through the corridor. And once you cross here, you're on a bridge crossing over the interstate. You've got the west exit ramp entering here. And then we get into the piece with Memorial Drive. This is where it does start to get a little crazy and trying to figure out which direction you're going. So if you need the key again, just take a look over here on the left-hand side. So we have a station at the new Justice Center where we would stop, and then we would come through and have a queue jump lane for the buses to cross over Memorial Drive and come through the intersection onto Capitol Avenue. And at this point, we make a turn right onto Jesse Hill Drive, which is a fairly new roadway here. And then we make a left onto MLK from Jesse Hill. And the station here at is to provide access to the Georgia State Station. So this is our connecting point for the east-west rail line. And we're able to make that a fairly easy transition into a dedicated lane onto MLK. And this is where we've turned direction. We're now heading west, and we continue on MLK in the dedicated lane. And then we're doing something a little different than on the other corridors where we have what we're calling a bulb out station. And what that does is allows us to maintain good sidewalk widths, but also still have the station area. So within the station area, there'll be parking around the station on the inside of the lane, but our lane is able to stay nice and straight and walk through there. And what you can see in the green on here are our proposed proposed bicycle facilities that the city is implementing. So a cycle track on Cortlandt and Washington Street that we wanted to make sure we included those that are planned projects moving forward. And then we continue down MLK, and it's pretty seamless as we move through the corridor. The existing travel lanes and expected turns that you have there now are the same. We would be working with the existing signal timings in order for the bus to run as smoothly as possible through the corridor. And then you come up to our next station, which is in just after Broad Street. And this would be the main access to the 5 Points rail station. So it's just a block away. It's a great connection there. And the bus station here puts us just on the other side of this block so that other buses that are moving and going towards the 5 Point station are able to make that through. As we come up through this, if you've been in this area, you know much of this is under construction at the moment, and will be completed before we come in and finish our piece. But this is an area where we'll be on the right-hand side and having the bus make a left turn onto Ted Turner Drive. And so there would be a bus only cycle. We're looking at a bus only cycle for the bus to make that turn, and then stop here right at the Federal Building and have great access there. And then we shift, we have a portion of where we shift back into a shared lane here as we head south to get back to Mitchell Street. And that allows us to come up and make the left turn at that location, and again, get back into our dedicated lane right there on Mitchell. And you'll again see parking on the inside here. And our next station is right here between Forsyth and Broad Street. Again, this is a bulb out station style that we're looking at. And as you travel through the corridor, when we have the one-way pieces, so you're going westbound on MLK, and then eastbound on Mitchell, this is the partner station, if you will, to the one at Broad Street that gives you access to 5 Points. And then as we continue through the corridor, we come along Mitchell. Our next station is right before you get to City Hall. And again, a bulb out station there that allows our lane to travel through conveniently into Mitchell Street, and then on to Central Avenue. There'll be the left turn that's there now. We have a couple options at this location. So as we are looking at the potential for the road closure as a permanent state at the Capitol, we've been working through two options at this location. And what we really had to think about is Mitchell Street and how it works with Washington Street, and then ultimately how we work with Memorial Avenue. So I'm going to show you two options. This is option one, where you're on Mitchell Street. We have the dedicated lane and we turn right, and there would be a bus signal for the bus to turn into the far lane here that would be a shared lane. I'm just going to go to the next image here. We're coming down here. This is Washington Street here. And we come down, and when we get to Memorial Drive, you would make a left turn, then onto Memorial with a bus phase before you come back to the station here on the bridge and return southbound. So as I said, there's two options here. So I'm going to walk you through the second option as well, and we're working through these choices. So this one, same thing on Mitchell Street. We're going to have the dedicated lane. You'll be in the right side. And then we would turn into I guess it'd be the far right lane as you come down Washington Street, and you would stay in that lane, and it would be shared. And that's because as traffic is coming southbound and needing to make other turns, we just want to make sure we can accommodate those different lane changes. And then as you continue to come down the south side here, or the far left side here, we would switch then to a dedicated lane, and the bus would actually stay on the outside and have a bus only signal. That means, everybody would stop except for the buses, and the buses would be allowed to make that left turn from the far right side. And this is something that we see in BRT systems and throughout the country. If you need to sort of facilitate those different turning movements to put everyone in the lane that they need to be in. And then you're back on a shared lane on Memorial Drive, and again to go southbound. So I know that's a lot of information to take in a short amount of time. And again, just reference up here, it can be a little confusing with which direction we're going. But that's generally where we are with the 30% design, and we're still coordinating with many of our stakeholders to refine these features as it moves into the next phase. So with that, I'm going to actually turn it over to Shelley to talk to you about the project status and where we are and what comes next.
Thank you so much, Emily. So now that we've shared where we are on our design, you can see on your screens that we are just about wrapping up our planning, and we'll be moving into final design. In final design, we'll still be, working with you and stakeholders to make sure that what we have identified as the alignment is still able to go through to final design. So we will still be coming out to the public and sharing and trying to confirm that we got it right. So we will start our final design in around February of 2021. We anticipate having everything wrapped up by August of 2022, and we'll begin construction. We still anticipate that we will be able to start service in August of 2024, and that would wrap up the project. I just want to say that I know this is the first bus rapid transit project for MARTA, and we're really excited about it because it's, I think, going to be a game changer, one that will lead to many other projects coming online in the very near future. Next slide. And I think that wraps up our presentation. I think we have about 19 or so questions that I see, and we're going to be going through the questions with you with our project manager, Brian Hobbs. And I guess at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Brian, and we're going to go through. I'm not sure if Erica is going to lead us, and then Brian will answer questions, but Brian may just kind of point to us and let us know who he wants to fill out, but we'll start going through the questions right now.
All right, thank you, Shelley. Good evening, everyone. As Shelley mentioned, my name is Brian Hobbs, project manager on this project. So what I'm going to be doing, we got a lot of questions. So what I'll do is basically, I'll read the question and then I'll ask one of our panelists or our team to answer that question. So let's get started. So the first question centers around fare. So what is the expected fare for this service? How will transfers to, from it work, and will the monthly pass be valid on it? Since this is a higher level question surrounding fare, what I'm going to do is ask our AGM, Heather Alhadef, to answer this question.
So this system would not be any different than the rest of the MARTA system in using the same fare structure and the same cards.
Thank you, Heather. Thank you. All right, so let's go to the next question. So the next question centers around bus, the size of the bus. I see a lot of questions about the bus. So would MARTA use the 40-foot or 60-foot buses for this project? And for this question, I'm going to ask that Shelley Peart answer.
I think we're anticipating using the 60-foot buses, which are the electric buses. And yeah, I think that's what we're anticipating, the 60-foot buses, yes.
Okay, thank you, Shelley.
Sure.
All right, so let's go to the next question. So the next question is—
Brian, can I just add, I'm sorry. The reason why she's saying she thinks the final design phase is where a lot of these things will still be worked out. So, that's where some of it's identified in planning, but you kind of confirm in final design. So that's an important thing to understand. It'd probably be the similar kind of answer for lots of questions that are coming. Some of the details yet to be worked out.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Heather. All right, next question centers around the protection of the BRT lanes. So how are the dedicated lanes going to be made clear? Will they be painted or have physical barriers separating them from the regular traffic lanes? And so for this question, I'll answer this one, part of it, then I'll let Emily kind of elaborate. So with this project, it is intended that the lanes are to be dedicated will be painted. Right now, from a standpoint from the national standards, you typically paint them red, and that's where we're headed. So they will be painted, they will be delineated and marked. And as far as physical barriers, right now, we're considering maybe turtles, but that is not final yet. And Emily, would you elaborate a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, that's the plan right now is painting, and as Heather was stating before, we'll refine some of this through final design and see what there's a need for, especially in the areas where the corridor is tight or constrained. It'll really be delineated by striping, and as you stated, the standard would be for a red painted lane to show that difference. And then it also comes down to being able, to be delineated and enforced, but that if something like a turtle, which are those plastic domes that you may have seen embedded into the road, is something that could be used, but we're not looking at a concrete or granite barrier at this time.
All right, thank you, Emily. All right, the next question I'm going to ask here, I'm seeing this question in multiple areas here. So, are bus routes from MARTA or other operators, regional express buses, will they be able to share the BRT lane between Capitol and Ted Turner? I'm going to ask that our AGM answer this question.
All right, sorry. Our other operators are able to use the bus routes. That's the intent would be to have that to be possible. The reality is we won't know until later because the operations of the MARTA bus system have to be preserved. So it just depends on how many we're talking about. But yes, the intent is to for buses to use the bus only lanes and other operators as well.
All right, thank you, Heather. All right, let's see. Let's go to the next question here. What are the key corridors for future expansion of BRT, including built out infrastructure, should the Summerhill route prove successful? So I'll answer this one. Many of you may have seen the More MARTA Atlanta program that was approved by our board. And as it stands right now, North Avenue is slated to be a BRT as well. So knowing that Summerhill is the first BRT route in the region, that we want to make sure that it is a success, and that not only MARTA but other operators take a key from MARTA and implement something similar. All right, we actually went through that pretty fast. One question here I will answer: is there a place where the public can view the 30% design drawings, or do we have to submit a FOIA request? It is our intent to post the 30% design drawings once we finalize them. So we do not intend that you will have to make a FOIA request to see those documents.
And Brian, I can add into that too. For the more graphical display that we showed this evening, the presentation will be available on the website as well. So the information that is in there will be provided.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, that was a question as well. All right, so the next question I'll ask is, are the electric buses battery powered, or will there be overhead lines? Emily, you want to take that one?
Oh, I'll try. So there are different electric vehicle types and what we're looking at. So the vendor of the electric vehicle is part of the next phase of what we determine. There will be, if there needs to be a charging station, it depends on how far the bus needs to travel and what the recharge needs to look like. So for this system, we are looking at the potential for a charging station that would be accommodated for on the south end of the project, but how exactly that charging station works with the vehicle will be dependent on which vehicle is selected and which vendor provides those vehicles. I don't know if any of the other team wants to add into that or not.
I think I'll add that we're not anticipating to have what you see on the existing streetcar, the overhead catenary wires. We're not anticipating that for this route for BRT. Thanks.
All right, thank you both. All right, the next question I'm going to answer centers around our current bus service in the BRT route. I'm actually going to ask Shelley to answer this. So the question is, what will happen to our other routes along the BRT route?
Along this route, I think there will be some integration. I believe this is the Route 55. It's not, I think I'm gonna have to punt on this one to Heather, but I believe we'll be looking at integrating the Route 55 with this. And there might be some overlapping services somewhere, but because I know the 55, I'm not totally on point with exactly where it goes, but there will be some overlapping and some integration.
Yeah, we will need to do an assessment of the overlapping service and make sure that the 55 still has what it needs. Nobody's going to leave 55. It covers different segments and different links. So we would do an assessment, and if there's some time savings because of the BRT and some improvements there, that's great, but we'll definitely have to reassess the two routes together.
All right, thank you both. All right, the next question is, how do cars learn to make the right turn over the designated bus lane? I.e., could cars unintentionally turn in front of the bus when the car is making a right? Emily, you want to take that one?
Sure. So with any traffic conditions and, there are turning movements, we have the drivers of the buses are professionally trained drivers that know how to work within mixed traffic, for starters. And it is something that takes time and something to get used to, but they will be able to make the turns just as they would driving in any other conditions. And we see this transition in a lot of cities that have implemented BRT, and it becomes the new normal. So it takes maybe a little bit of getting used to, but we don't see this as being a conflict point typically between the bus lanes, and you are able to cross the bus lanes and be in the bus lane to make the turn you need to make safely.
All right, thank you, Emily. This next question I'm actually seeing a lot. It centers around enforcement. So the question that I'm seeing is, how will MARTA enforce that the traffic stays out of the bus lanes? So I'm going to answer part of that, then anybody else who wants to chime in can chime in. So from an enforcement standpoint, there are multiple ways you can enforce the rules per se. With regards to the dedicated bus lanes, there's camera enforcement, there's actual police enforcement. There are multiple ways that we can do that. So we're evaluating all of those ways in which we can enforce the rules with regards to the managed lanes. Anybody else want to weigh in on that?
Just again, that's another one of those to be worked out through the final design phase. So it's not surprising that we haven't figured that out yet.
Yeah. All right, thank you. All right, you guys throwing out some good questions here. Looks like I answered a lot. So one question, we actually got this question last time as well. This question centers around the Norfolk Southern Railroad tracks. I think the CSX as well, on the south side of the corridor. It centers around, how will the residents on the other side of the tracks, while the train is there, access the BRT alignment? So I'll ask that Shelley answers this.
How will they access it? I would assume that once the trains aren't there, we're not proposing going across the track. We're starting the southern terminus after University Avenue. So I'm not sure how to answer that. I'm sorry.
I'll talk a little bit about this.
Okay.
Carla
thank you,
Smith
Councilmember.
again. I know exactly what this problem is. I think I probably know the person that asked it. As a matter of fact, it's kind of strange. I talked about this morning. We need to get together with the train people because they do stop because they're loading their trains. And we need to talk to them about either pushing it up further or loading it a little bit further back, because right there at University, that's a huge transportation hub. So I probably need to get with someone with the city and the transportation department. Maybe one of y'all might want to come and we get together with the neighborhood and the train people and discuss this, because we need to tell them that this is coming, and that makes it even more important. For years, it's been very important because of the Carver High School students, but now we've got this. So we're getting so many great amenities with the Beltline and our BRT. And I mean, this is all coming together with a pedestrian, a bike, all kinds of transit hubs. So we just really need to work as a community to get together. And then I do want to say this too about the enforcement thing. Y'all, when this thing goes live, we are going to have so many car people are going to complain. So I need every one of y'all that are here tonight, understand how this works. Start talking to your friends now and let them know that we support the bus taking one lane away, and that if they're upset because they feel like they're not getting to work as quickly or they're wanting to get over in that lane, we can also help with that enforcement by talking about it and telling people don't pull over there, because if you want to be in that bus lane, you need to park out, somewhere and ride MARTA into town and then get on our BRT that we've worked so hard on. So anyway, I think some of that is going to be word of mouth and us teaching people, and that will help with our enforcement.
Thank you, Councilwoman. All right, let's see, the next question we have here, we have a few more minutes. Will the public be engaged on the bus design? So that's a question I'm gonna hand off to Shelley Pure.
In the bus, if we're talking about the branding of the bus, yes, that is something that is still in development, so to speak. And so, yes, we will be coming back out to the public once we get into final design, so that you will be able to have some input. Yes.
Thank you, Shelley. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see the next question here. So Emily, you mentioned Ted Turner area earlier during the presentation. Could you please define what that area is?
Oh, I think, yes, I was talking about as we come up MLK to Ted Turner Drive and Spring Street, that's where we make the turn from MLK to return back eastbound on Mitchell Street. So we're using Ted Turner Drive. If I said area, I'm sorry. It's just talking about the drive.
All right, thank you, Emily. All right, next question here. Has MARTA considered center running stations? So I'll answer that one. With regards to center running stations, we have not considered it for this project, but center running stations will always be considered for any other future BRT projects. For this project being a Tiger grant and how quickly we had to move on this project, it made more sense from a timing standpoint, and really the alignment in itself, it just makes more sense to be curb running. But we will consider centerline stations on other projects as well. All right, let's see. I'm almost running out of questions, guys.
I think we have one more about project success. How will we measure project success?
Yeah, that is a good question. So how do we determine, or how do we measure project success? I'm going to ask that Heather Alhada answer this.
59 million people riding it on the. That's a good question, but clearly metrics are usually based on ridership and things like that. But I don't have a specific metric for you for right now, but this project represents stitching back the community physically in ways that have been permanently severed with the highway system decades ago. So already the stitching back the communities is a success. Getting more options for whether people drive some days and take MARTA other days, whatever it is. But I think there's clearly a demand by existing ridership and people in the area. There's more development coming, so that's more people and more destinations. So this is just really beautiful that we are watching. Planning usually is such a long horizon, and you're looking so far in the future for something to be coming to fruition at the time that this growth is coming at the same time as well. It's really beautiful. So I'll let Carla talk, because this is
okay. This is going to be success, because y'all, I ride the 55. So I'm on my way to City Hall, and I'm on with everyone else. And by the time it's starting to get downtown, it's getting really crowded. We get up on the I-20 bridge. Is anybody starting to remember this? You get on the I-20 bridge, and then we're sitting in all that traffic because all those people are coming off the interstate, and we're sitting there and we're sitting there. And then you start looking at your watch, and then you're afraid you're going to be late to your meeting, and we can't get off the bus because it's not a stop, and we're stuck in traffic. So my success is going to be measured by me getting on the 55, zooming over the bridge, zooming around, and getting off at my stop when people are still sitting on I-20 or on the bridge at Capitol. So our success is going to be measured when we're all riding it, or when the car that's sitting there in traffic is getting mad because that bus is flying by. So that's going to be our success story.
Love it, love it, love it. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, and Councilmember, I'm gonna have you close us out. But before we do, I just want to remind everyone, if you have project specific questions, send those to Brian Hobbs at jhobbs@itsmarta.com. You can also check out the presentations. We will put them on the website. The project website is connectthecore.com. That's connectthecore.com. And we will compile the questions and place them in a document and put them on the website. And with that being said, Council Member, will you close us out for the evening?
I will. I'm going to say again, I cannot thank everyone enough for all the hard work that's gone into this, that's going into it. I mean, we've still got so many hurdles to cross, but think about how far we've come. I mean, we've come from from a neighborhood redevelopment plan. Well, it was in another plan a long time ago, but we've come from it being on a piece of paper to now we're drawing things that are really going to happen in the future. And so much thought has gone into this whole process, and we couldn't do it if the public didn't tell us what they think too. So we want to hear from you, all the participants that are here. We want to hear from you. Tell us what you think, because you might have the $1 million idea, and you might be the one that helps us get that success marked. So anyway, again, everyone, thank you so much.
Yes, and also I want to let the participants know we're going to figure out a way to put the Zoom link on the Connect the Core website so that everyone can take the survey, just so you know. Thank you. And with that being said, good night. Thanks.
Bye. Everyone did a great job.